Hey guys, welcome to the first re-air of our off season. Hopefully, you're missing us as much as we are missing you. We will be back soon with some fresh content. Until then, let's go all the way back to episode 2, where we discuss how to begin your practice. This is one of our longer ones, so I'll be cutting it in half and launching half this week and half next. So enjoy, as always. We'll see you soon. Welcome to the Conclave.
All right, and everybody, welcome back to episode 2 of the Conclave podcast. Just in case there is any confusion, this is not a podcast based around the brand new Ralph Fiennes and Stanley Tucci movie. This is a metaphysical podcast deep diving into all things spiritual, witchy, cryptid, kind of all that good stuff that's out there. I am Patrick, and this is my beautiful wife, Jessica. We are the owners of the menagerie in Bellevue, right outside of Pittsburgh, and this is where we go to talk to you. A couple things I wanted to clean up and clear up that I kind of forgot to in the first episode. And before we really do that, I just want to say thank you for all of those who watched and listened to the first podcast and the first episode. Um, there was some things in there that we've never talked about publicly before, so it was kind of nice to get it out there and let people know, like, hey, where did we actually come from? One of the things I'd wanted to talk about and completely forgot to was where we came up with the names for everything.
Yes.
So when we first decided to open up the menagerie, we were initially looking at purchasing a metaphysical shop that was in the same location that we are now. They ended up moving. They were supposed to move to New York, and in the last minute decided to just move to a different part of Pittsburgh. So that sale didn't go through, and we decided to open our own. And of course, one of those big things of that is what to call it. And we went back and forth for quite some time trying to figure out what exactly it's going to be. And I always kind of linked into and loved the name Conclave. Jess here is much smarter than me and found the word. Well, not found. She probably already knew it because she's the talented one of the bunch, of the menagerie. And we went with the menagerie because the technical definition of a menagerie is
a strange or diverse collection of people and things, which for a metaphysical store seemed like the perfect descriptor.
Yeah. And, we had the things, and in the last 3 years, I think we've definitely gotten a really great collection of people also to go along with it. We did kind of both get our way, though, when it came to naming, because apparently somewhere in eastern Pennsylvania, I think in the Philadelphia area, there was already somebody with the name The Menagerie. So we weren't able to use that as our doing business as name as just The Menagerie. So when you look at it, the full name of the shop is The Menagerie, a metaphysical conclave. Obviously, we don't use the full thing for anything other than official paperwork and records.
Correct.
But and then so that made a fairly easy decision on calling the podcast The Conclave, because a conclave is
a private meeting or secret assembly. So with the fact that we're going to be adding guests, etc., that focus on different aspects of practices, we thought it would be a really great descriptor for the podcast.
Yep. There's also the aspect that I love the idea of secretive, right? Because even before this, when we were in the restaurant business, when we had thought about doing a catering business or a underground supper club type of a thing, we went with Cloak and Dagger, right? It's all secret and underground and CIA and type black ops, hidden in the shadows thought and feel to it. And unfortunately, to a degree, in the metaphysical world, we're still kind of in that range. So while paganism and witchcraft has definitely gotten
more
mainstream, taking huge leaps in the last couple of years, it's still something that most people, us included, we have to mask, right? You keep some of this quiet.
Certain situations,
Yep.
environments, around certain groups of people. Um, just it's the nature of the beast.
Yep. I mean, prime example. I love my dad wholeheartedly. Obviously, our families know about the shop and they know roughly what it is. But I think my side of the family, especially, lives in um, blissful ignorance. So when he asked this morning, "Hey, where do I find the podcast?" It's like, nah, don't worry about it. You don't need to listen to
You
it.
won't be interested.
You won't be interested, right? Because there's, coming from a very Catholic family, there would be that unacceptance, and it's not full unacceptance, but a dislike of the paths in which we've taken and the direction we've gone. So, for that, we partially mask, and it's just to make sure that things are copacetic in everyday life.
It's a
So,
battle that you don't have to always fight battles. You don't always
exactly.
have to pick every battle to fight, and that's just not one that we're willing to fight.
Yeah, life is exhausting as it is.
Yeah,
There's enough people that want to see you fail. Why add to it, right?
exactly.
um, and I think that's a really good segue into our topic today. So the podcast episode title today is uh, "In the Beginning," because we're talking about how to start our practice. It's the whole concept of let there be light. We're at the very start of it and we're going into it. And what we just discussed is a very big thing that all brand new practitioners really need to look at, right? On, is this even something that aligns with them personally? Is this something that they can be completely open about? Do they want to be completely open about? Are they willing to accept the consequences of, entering into a counterculture, which is essentially what this is?
Mhm.
So these are all things that, as you're beginning your practice, you need to be asking yourself and questioning, because this is not something to enter into lightly. Changing up religions and faiths and practices and all that kind of stuff is a very deep to the core issue. And there are ways to fit it more mainstream and for people to be able to do it on the day to day. So, these are just things. Question yourself, ask yourself, get to know about it. Okay. Um, so before we get into things that we suggest for how to start your practice, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about where we were in the beginning of our practice, right? So we heard in episode 1 kind of the backstory of what got us into the metaphysical world. So what did we start studying when we first did it? Jess, what was the first steps that you took in? What were your first
Um,
sessions?
well, there was that, we really started deep diving further after our first apartment together in Asheville. Uh, I remember waking up in the middle of the night and there was just this like, I don't like to use the term demonic, but that's what most people are going to understand in a
Yeah.
colloquialism, but a demonic looking face coming through our wall. And our dog was also growling at it. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm half asleep and I'm just, seeing shadows and roll back over. There was something there. Um, so I get up the next morning and I start deep diving into ways to cleanse a house. And I think this is why I'm always so adamant when people are starting that if they want to know what they need to do to start, like cleansing and protection are like the first two things.
Mhm.
Because you can kick things out all you want, and I did eventually kick that thing out. Um, and then you have to learn how to keep them out because it's no good to get rid of a thief and then leave your door unlocked. You need to know how to remove them and then keep them on the other side of your barriers. Uh, as a result, like because of what both of us were doing as our job at the time, um, we were both working in professional kitchens. We were heavy into the culinary field. We had a metric butt ton of herbs and spices and things in our kitchen cabinets, specifically just for use at home. So that was a very natural progression for, at least for me, was to immediately go like, what do I have that I can use? Sir, that I can use to start affecting change. And, you start learning that, like, oh, rosemary can do a whole lot. You start learning Italian seasoning can do a whole lot, like cinnamon, salt, all these things like have an effect. on your intentions. So it was a very natural progression to move from like, I need to get something done, to figuring out what I needed and going, oh, I have that. Uh, and starting to go from there and building a kind of herb-based kitchen witchery practice out of all of that. And that still kind of remains a core element to what I do now.
Mm-hmm.
From there, like, yeah, I started dabbling with like tarot cards and things like that. Dabbling in the divination realm because, trying to see what else is out there, connect to my guides, see if what I did was effective, anything like that. Hey, Fred, knock it off. Sorry,
We
he's
have a
chewing the cords.
Freddie, you'll remember from last time where he decided to flash you his butt. We got a new setup going on. As you can see, we have different location for it. We got a better camera rather than just the webcam on the laptop that we're recording on. But that gives extra fun things for little orange kitties to play with. So I think he's going to be the little
The unofficial
surprise
mascot.
guest star in the podcast. So I want to take a step back real quick and retouch in on the learning how to cleanse and protect your space. Okay. Um, no, other practitioners aren't just going to willy-nilly start attacking you, right? That's not why we tell people that. It's not why we say, hey, this is really important. You should look into this. Okay. We do it because, like Jess said, if an energy or an entity or something does come into your space, how are you going to keep them out if you don't protect, right? I always tell people, or and I have a lot of people that then also ask, well, isn't doing that just drawing them in? Isn't it more likely for them to come at you? It's like, well, when you go on vacation, do you lock your door?
Yeah.
Right? Locking your door doesn't entice thieves to come and break into your house. An open door would, but a locked one not necessarily would. So this is what we're looking at for it. It's also very, and we're going to get into this probably a little bit more a little further down, but it's a great way to start learning how to build spells. It forces you to do research into herbs and candles and all that other stuff. It's kind of one of those things of it's just smart. It is forces you to learn. It forces you how to learn, and it forces you how to do stuff.
And, with cleansing, every time you walk around outside, you're picking up energy from other people, from the environment. I mean, when you go out daily, you do occasionally come home and shower, right?
Yeah.
Cleansing is the same concept. When you're working in a metaphysical field, in an energy field, then you're going to every once in a while need to slough some of that off and get yourself back to zero. And, you'll feel better for it in the long run for doing what we call regular spiritual hygiene. Um, and if you think of it that way, I think it makes it a lot easier and less intimidating to like approach.
Yeah, at the very least, to look at the reason why do I have to protect myself? What's out there?
Yeah.
Really nothing. Just John Q. Public is out there.
Yeah, like somebody could have cussed you out in their head because you cut them off, and now you got a little bit of funk on you. Like, get it off.
Yep. Thoughts have intention,
Yeah.
whether people mean for it to or not, and that includes the Muggles. It's not just the magic workers that can force will into the universe. It's everybody, right? Whether they realize they're doing it or not.
Don't the Irish call it putting the come hither on somebody? The hither.
Cast the hither. If I remember that correctly, if I read that point correctly. It's always a constant struggle to make sure you're hitting the right research material. So that's where Jess kind of started into it. I did a little bit of a different approach. The divination was definitely a very big part of my beginning, as was crystals and sigil work. So my thought was, well, if Jess is learning the herbs, I'm going to learn the crystals, and then together we'll have a really proper balance. Two problems with that. One, as my path grew and changed and became, I very rarely use crystals anymore. That's something that's just every now and then it'll slide in. They have their purpose, they have their needs, but for the most part, it's not part of my practice anymore. And there's so many of them and so many definitions and so many cross angles that your brain will very naturally drop that knowledge because it is a bit of a spider web and confusion. It looks like the meme with Charlie Day from Always Sunny in
With all
Philadelphia,
the
with all like the murder board going on behind and all the strings are in crazy angles, which is a lot of what the crystals can do. Um, it's a very valid path to practice. It's just not one that's for me. So all that time spent reading on crystals and looking them up and buying so many. uh, I don't want to say it was for nothing, but it didn't feed me in the long run. Whereas now I do a lot more of work with herbs. Um, and I'm constantly having to go, Jess, I need help with this because she has that knowledge so readily available because she's now been studying it for years and years and years. So I tend to
if
tell
not, I
people
have a
now,
book for it.
yeah, if not, when we touch on that later on, you're going to see the massive binder she created. So that's why, I tend to steer people more towards the herbs now than the crystals. Um, Divination, when I first got into that, my thought process was, let's learn the runes. And I think a lot of people are interested in runes and they're curious about them. But here's the thing about runes. They're divination tool. They're words and they're an alphabet. It's a lot.
It can also be used as a ritual tool.
It's also rich. Yeah. There's so much to it and there's so much to learn to even begin to grasp and understand it. And at the time, Jess hadn't chosen the Norse path. So there was really no one for me to bounce it off of. So as you're trying to learn these things, it's just like it became overpowering. And especially at the same time, I'm trying to learn tarot. And it's like, runes aren't going to be my thing. Let's stick to the cards. Tarot ended up being very difficult for me to connect to initially. So I switched to oracle cards. And we'll go over into the difference between the two here in a little bit. But it wasn't until I was able to grasp and learn how to connect to the cards with my Oracle deck that tarot really started coming through. And now that is a huge part of my day-to-day life. Uh, and finally, the last part that I dove into really in the beginning, and this one is still very much wonderfully around, is sigils. And sigils is the act of, you can take words or sentences or concepts and ideas. It's very artistic, right? You get to create your own symbol that has the intent for the working that you want to do into it. It can be as simple as taking letters and just combining them into a symbol. You can draw a whole thing and you can get really creative with it. There was an old warding sigil and protection sigil that I created that had a lock into it and some runes and some ogham, which is the Irish, ancient Irish language and writing style, along with just some other imagery drawn into it. And it was a literal lock that I drew it all into. Um, and then I would post little pictures of it above all the windows and all the doors, and then burn a bay leaf that had that same image on it, and that was the activator to them. So you can make it as simple or as complex as you really want. I still absolutely just love sigil work. It's a lot of really good times. So that is where our practices started. Where did it go? You're going to find that out throughout the podcast. That's kind of part of this journey is the evolution of us as well. But they are vastly different than I think at least that I
thought we were going.
And that's going to happen to most people when they first start out. And I don't think I've ever heard a single person be like, nope, the first thing I did, it's what I'm still where I'm still at. So
don't be discouraged if things aren't clicking when you start out. Try something else. Keep trying something else until something actually feels right, until something is effective. You don't have to go with the first book you pick up. You don't have to go with the first answer you get to. There's a lot of time, like you should spend the first several years of your practice just exploring what's out there and getting an idea of a little bit of everything so that you can kind of figure out where your comfort zone is and what really resonates with you.
Keyword on that one, folks, is years.
It's called a practice because it's never meant to be perfect and you're going to always be adding to it. So buckle up, Buttercup. It's a ride.
Very, very true. And that's a good thing. We as people evolve, So obviously our interests evolve.
Our
You know,
practice should change with us, grow with
yep,
us.
yep. So we're getting into now we're going to get into the kind of the meat and potatoes of what the episode is going to be about, because probably the most um
Common question we
the
get.
most common question we get is, where do I start? And that answer is
It's so
so
open
wide
ended.
ranging, right?
It's such an
Because
open
I
question.
mean, when you look at it first, it just in the most basic end to it, are we talking about um witchcraft and folk magics and that kind of practice? Or are we looking at more of a religious spiritual practice? So those are, the two big main
The two can exist
umbrellas.
separately from each other.
Yeah.
Like if you want to be a pagan, you don't have to be a witch. If you want to be a witch, you don't have to be a pagan.
Nope.
Um,
They don't like to admit it, but Christian witches do exist.
Atheist witches do exist.
Yep.
Like you don't have like all of these things can exist independent of each other.
Yeah. They do cross over a lot. There's a lot of places where they do cross. But it is an independent thing, which is why, I kept saying in episode 1, you have your spiritual path and you have your green world path, because they are fairly separate and different. Today we're going to be talking just solely on the physical world, right, and the craft side to it. Episode 4 will go more into starting a more of a religious experience and more of that kind of path.
So with where you begin, you need to know where you're coming from to begin with. What traditions are you familiar with? If you are coming from a Catholic background, it might be easier for you to start incorporating things like archangels. Um, if What hobbies do you practice? Because these might give you a clue to what craft aspects you might be able to go to. Do you work with like crochet and knitting a lot? Do you like to do sewing? Maybe look into knot work
Yeah.
and knot craft. If you're a musician, maybe look into um, sound practices, especially sound meditation. If you are a cook, look into your herbs. If you are an artist, look into sigils. Like these are like,
Yep.
take something that you already enjoy doing and seeing if you can't add like imbue a little magic into it.
Yep. Yep. I mean, that's one of the important things to realize. Magic is in your everyday life. There's so many things that people do that are, air quotes, witchy, that they would never even realize that that's what it's coming from. But Jess is 100% right. If you can find something that ties into it automatically, when we look at our breakdown, as a kid, I was never more than 2 steps away from pencil and paper. I was drawing all the time. Right. I stopped doing it for a number of years, starting to get back into it. But I always kind of felt like that's the reason why sigils were such a draw for me. Jess did a lot of gardening and outdoor work when she was a kid. So of course, herbs, especially ones that she would have planted before, ties in nicely with her.
Mm-hmm.
So, and like she keeps mentioning, both being chefs, time in the kitchen, that's going to help push that through. And the nice thing with that is, we were used to following recipes.
Yeah.
We're used to, looking
Building
at
recipes
and how things work well together, and putting it all like that. That has translated really well to spell
witchcraft.
work and especially like complex spell work, where you get a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit all over the place.
Because at the end of the day, building a spell, you're usually following like a prescribed process.
Yeah.
And then you're inputting the ingredients. So, for example, if I were to make a braised chicken dish in the kitchen, I would add whatever seasonings I wanted. But let's say I wanted to do braised beef. Guess what? Braising is still braising is still braising. I'm just changing the ingredients around. That's what a lot of spell work can end up being, especially stuff you do regularly, can very much be a kind of plug and play situation. Once you get a formula down for how to do something, then you can start inserting different ingredients. You can play with like, okay, that prosperity spell I did worked okay last time. Let's see what happens if I try to heat it up by adding something like maybe some ginger or some cinnamon that spice it up, give it a little heat to make it work maybe a little faster or a little more dramatically. So it becomes a situation that you can personalize very well.
So, mundane and magical can go hand in hand. They can be separate. They can go hand. It's like everything. So look to what already interests you. Look at what instantly draws you. What kind of really pulls you in. Of course, I say that, and that's the trap that most people fall in when it comes to crystals. It's like, ooh, shiny thing. I want shiny, 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 shiny. We all fall into that category. I expect that at least for part of the time that you're doing all of this,
You're
that
going to
crystals
100% goblin brain.
you're gonna goblin brain, especially with the crystals, because they are shiny. They're really cool. They're fun to look at.
They also can be really helpful, especially at the beginning for boosting intention.
Yeah.
So,
Which leads us into our next topic. We're segueing quite nicely into crystals. So when we're looking at crystals, what kind of crystals do we want to look at when we're first beginning? Is going to be a good direction to go on. So what would be the couple that, say like 3, 4 that you would think is really good for beginners?
I always say you want one thing for protection. So that could be like black tourmaline, hematite, obsidian, onyx, which.
So those are your black crystals. Like this right here is a very large chunk of black tourmaline. Okay.
We're picking some of the larger pieces here so they show up on camera. Yeah. You do not have to buy the $100 chunks of anything. You can buy the $1
This is a $1 chip of the same thing. They do the same thing. It's all on how you want to use it and to what degree. Personally, when it comes to, so protection stones are normally black.
Yeah, black is a good basis to start with. If you're not sure, look at a black stone, grab one of those.
Yep. Personally, I think tourmaline is a great place to start. That's always been my favorite of the protection stones. I know other people have different ones.
I prefer hematite.
She prefers the hematite. So here's the differences between them. When you look at it, black tourmaline is really great for psychic protection. Okay, so that is protection of everything kind of around you in the spiritual realm. Whereas hematite is, I like to think of it as like the bodyguard.
Energetic protections.
Yeah. So what hematite does is it absorbs negativity and transmute it as positive energy. So it's like a tree. Takes in the carbon dioxide, sets out oxygen. Takes in bad vibes, pours out good vibes. It's also kind of cool because there's so many different forms of it, including rings, which when they're full of negativity, they break and fall away. There is the little tumbles. There are any size and shape, really. Yeah. And then you have the little magnets.
Yeah, the little magnetic ones are fun. My kids love those. They like little fidgets, toys for them.
Yeah. So we've gotten a protection stone. Where should we look next?
Cleansing, selenite. That's going to be probably the first thing any metaphysical store will tell you to roll with first. Basically what selenite does is kind of bring your space to a neutral zone. So it's really great for meditation spaces, places that you want to keep kind of cleansed and quiet energetically.
And the nice thing about selenite is it is crystallized salt.
Yeah. Don't get it wet.
Yeah. If you put it in a glass of water, it will dissolve.
Eventually.
But because, salt has been used for millennia in all types of cleansing policies and practices, including, that's why a lot of times you see it on food that need, when they didn't have refrigeration.
Yeah.
And storage and stuff like that.
Is a purifier preserver.
Yep. And it does that in the spiritual world also. So we have a black stone, we have a cleansing stone. Where are we looking next?
Obviously amethyst is another great one. It's a kind of spiritual catch-all. You can never really go wrong with a chunk of purple. It's a cleanser, it's a protector, it's a healing stone, it's soothing, it's good for dream work. So if you only get like one piece of something, amethyst is a great one. Especially if you get like some of the raw form geodes, those are really great for like cleansing your other crystals. Mm-hmm. So if you have like a raw form geode on like wherever you keep your crystals. That'll keep them kind of regularly cleansed, so you don't have to do whole rituals to keep them cleansed. So
Yeah. And also the nice thing about amethyst is it is so widely loved by everybody, both in the magical world and the mundane world, that it is a great one to have around. If you're still,
you're still a little in the closet,
if you're
nobody's
still
gonna
in the
look
broom
twice.
closet, nobody's going to question it, right?
You're gonna be like, oh, that's a pretty chunk of amethyst, and move on with their day.
Exactly. Okay, so the fourth one that we're going to suggest, and I like this one because it's a blank slate.
It's programmable.
It's programmable. So we are talking about clear quartz, right? And they come in all sorts of really beautiful shapes and sizes. You get a lot of nice phantom inclusions and stuff like that in there to be able to use as focal points when you meditate. They come in large, they come in small, and the nice thing about it is, like I said, it's a blank slate, so you can put your intention in there.
Yeah.
Right. If you're looking for a stone that is going to help with anxiety, right, but you don't know what that is and you can't find a good resource that tells you what stone would do that, grab yourself a piece of clear quartz, hold it in your hands, think about it, think about the stone, think about what you want it to use for. And just like with a computer, you've now programmed it to be thinking into that direction. So clear quartz is kind of, amethyst is good at everything. Clear quartz can be forced to be good at anything, just that one thing, right? It won't do you can't be like, oh, I guess you could technically be like,
I mean, you
like
can cleanse it, start over.
Yeah.
But, once you program it, it's for that use until you cleanse it and reprogram.
Correct. Okay, so you've now mentioned that twice. So how do people cleanse crystals?
It depends on the crystal. Bowl of salt is always good. Some people say bury them. You can put them in the moonlight, especially on a full moon.
Mm-hmm.
Some you can run underwater. Things like in the quartz family are usually fairly safe. If it ends in ITE, probably avoid water with it. That's usually a big signifier that it will either leach toxins into the water or the water will degrade the crystal. Smoke cleansing, sound cleansing, Reiki cleansing. It literally, however you can cleanse anything, you can cleanse a crystal. And again, sometimes the easiest way, get yourself a selenite slab or bowl, and just anything you've used recently that you want to reprogram or cleanse completely. Toss everything in the bowl. Like, we have a stick of selenite in our key bowl when we walk in. So when we have any of our like crystal jewelry on, we just take it off, put it in the key bowl with the selenite, and the next morning it's ready to go. We're not adding extra steps. We're not adding extra ritual. It's all right. Here you go. Clean yourself off tonight. Relax. See you in the morning.
Yep. Now, probably your easiest bet, other than getting a selenite bowl, because like you said, we're starting small. Use that full moonlight. Okay. When Jess says a bowl of salt, you don't have to bury it in the salt. Just put like a nice little layer and put the crystal on top of it, almost like you would see like a one of those Zen gardens, right?
And it doesn't have to be super special secret salt. It's the salt you buy at the grocery store. Like that jar of Morton's you've got in the back of your cabinet that you refill your salt shaker with. Yeah, you can use that.
It could be ionized, it could be kosher, it can be sea salt, it can be any of the such. So don't
Dollar Tree salt works just as well as
very true
as any other salt you're gonna find. So you don't have to break the bank to use salt. All right, guys.
Water, I would stick away. I personally would stay away from, just because you don't know, unless you know really well if it's okay or not, or that it may not. You don't want to damage your crystals.
Yeah.
Okay, and there are some, especially stuff like tourmaline, selenite, kyanite. Like she said, the ites. It's a good guide to it, but there are others that won't. Hematite, terrible in it.
Yeah, it's got iron content in it, so it's gonna rust. Same with pyrite.
Yeah.
Malachite, that will leach toxins into the water.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, unless you know, I would say stick away from using water for it. If you're going to use water, I suggest moon water, which we're going to get into in a little bit on
How to
what
do
moon
that.
water is and how to do it. And I'd also stay away from sunlight. Try to keep your crystals out of the light, because there are a lot of crystals out there
That'll
that
bleed.
direct sunlight will bleach. Amethyst being one of those citrine, sorry, that bleach also. So it almost seems like the ones that are okay with water are worse with.
Extended direct sunlight, bad.
Yeah, if you end up putting your stones on the windowsill overnight for the full moon, and you don't remember to take them down in the morning, it'll be okay for that day.
Or
But
you're
you
going to
don't
do a ritual outside and it's sunny. It's going to be fine.
Yeah. You just don't want to get into the habit of leaving it there for long periods of time. All right, that's when it's going to then bleach the crystals, make them, won't necessarily do anything wrong with them other than the fact that it's going to become very dull looking, and that really pretty, oh, look at the vibrant color we have here.
Yeah.
Have that vibrant color.
You don't want that to happen to your deep purple Jamie looking amethyst. Like,
Yeah.
that'll just be sad.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I did as we were starting is I started building a binder. This is my crystal one. And what we have here is I made a template on just Microsoft Word, and I had like signs that may be associated. Here we got amethyst here. Planets it may be associated with, elements, deities, chakras, and then the different properties of the crystal. And I just, again, did this in Word. I made a couple blank ones, so when I thought about it, I could just scribble. And then I had ones that I could just fill in the blanks.
I'm going to take that from you and show it to see if I can get it a little bit better seen on the camera.
And these are very similar to the worksheets I hand out when I do my urban crystal class at the shop as well.
It's still a little fuzzy, but you can see a little bit better idea of how it works there for it.
So this way, you're not forgetting after getting, like, you bought this crystal and you're like, wow, I wonder what that does. Because sometimes I would just go buy crystals that were calling to me, and then I'd go home and I research them. Now instead of forgetting, you have an easy way to access this. I mean, this is an alphabetical order of all stuff that I have picked up over the years. And now you have kind of an instant reference note of things you have in stock. So if you're going to do something, you're building a spell and you're like, oh, a friend of mine's pregnant, but they're having a rough pregnancy. Let me do something for that. Now you can just go through and be like, all right, what's good for fertility? What's good for vitality? What's good for pregnancies? And you can more easily reference things you already have in stock, so you're not constantly going to the store for something you don't necessarily need if you have a suitable substitute for. And I did the same thing for the herbs. And with that, nice segue.
Yeah, but I did have one more thing I want to touch on, but
okay.
That's okay. We'll get back to it.
And I did the same thing with the herbs, and I started with what was in my spice cabinet, and I just made my little templates, and I started with what I had. And then as I bought more stuff or bought new spices, I researched them, added them to the binder. I like doing the binders because it makes it a living document. You don't have to, like, in a journal more like these, you're constantly having to figure out where you wrote it. This, I can keep it organized in a way that makes sense for my brain.
Yeah.
And I'm able to pull things in and out, et cetera, et cetera. So I say binder work for things like reference material is super, super useful.
Well, because at the same time, notebooks, they run out of paper.
Yeah.
Now you got to remember which book, not just where in the book. With the binders, you add to it, right? So It's not as big of a thing. So two things I want to touch on real quick. One's going to go back to crystals for just a heartbeat, and the other one's going to be on herbs. So jumping back to crystals, we've all kind of fallen into this trap of, I have to have this specific crystal for this specific intention. The whole idea of crystals having a specific job is quite new. All right. If I remember correctly, there was a psychic, and I hate that term.
Yeah.
You'll learn throughout this. I hate the term psychic because I have a better understanding now of the breakdown of that. But for ease of conversation, I still use the term. But there was a psychic back in, I want to say it was like the 1970s. who that was his found gift. That was his shtick. He understood the crystals to the point of writing down the list of what it is they were good for and what it is they did. Follow that guide. That guide is a good one. Okay. But if you are standing at a shop like the Menagerie at this giant table of tumble crystals, which is what, is called for the little guys, and you're standing at the giant table and you're like, okay, I want some bloodstone because I'm trying to work on circulation. But all the bloodstone in the bowl is kind of meh. You're not feeling it. But, a little bit across the way, you have, say, red jasper.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Red jasper technically has nothing to do with that. But it's calling to you and it feels right. And that's what your attention is being drawn to. Go with the red jasper. Right? There's a reason that you may not understand yet as to why a different type of stone than what you are supposed to be getting for a situation is calling to you. Go with that. Trust your intuition. Trust your gut. Okay. Intuition is going to be a big thing in your world now. Now that you are in a practice, intuition is huge. Trust it.
And there's actually for crystals, if you're looking for a quick reference and some really good information, there's 2 websites I use a lot that are really well researched and actually have like credit where they got their information. And that would be, and you can Google these. There's Crystal Council and Crystal Vaults. Those both have a lot of great information and it's well referenced.
Take note of that. We will give reference and praise to things that are great and things that are good.
I've got a stack of books here for
yeah. We're going to show you some. But when there's websites that we like and that we have researched and know is good material, we're going to give them to you.
We are not being sponsored.
I'm not. Yeah, we're not being sponsored by anybody, and I'm not going to try to gatekeep any information. We're going to let you know all of our sources. So, our segue now into herbs. We're going to go starting with the crystals and going into that is start small. Don't go into a shop and jump into big stuff like this. Okay. For an idea, this chunk of tourmaline is $100. This amethyst is $50. The big crystals get expensive, and there's reason for it, right? This amethyst,
$4.
$4. This tourmaline, $1. They do the same thing. Start small, okay? Otherwise, you're going to end up losing a whole bunch of money every single time that you have one single working to do. Start small, save your pocket, save your wallet, start a little on the cheap side. And that is where that's where I'm going to segue into herbs and meet you in that area. And that is dollar store, local grocery store, all of these things.
Foraged.
Start your herbs with that. Start with the stuff that you can find in your spice cabinet that you already have. Again, this practice is now something that will be going on lifelong. Make sure it's for you before you start diving into and spending a lot of money on a witchy herb cabinet, right? When you want to do that, places have it. We have close to 100 herbs on the wall right now.
I need another shelf.
Yeah. Oops. So, there's room to grow and there's room to evolve it with it. At the same time, if you come to our shop and you see rosemary and you're like, oh crap, I also need that for
chicken.
For chicken tonight. We get food grade quality herbs. Not every store does, so make sure if you're going to then be like, oh, I'm going to use some of this rosemary to cook dinner tonight, double check and make sure that it is actually food grade quality and not just be like, yeah, it's good enough.
I'm going to use these bay leaves for magic and soup. Make sure they're food grade.
Yeah. The difference between the two, food grade, they take into consideration any potential pest infestations. All right. They control it a little bit better of what can and can't get to the herbs in
it's regulated by a government agency.
Transfer, stuff like that. So if you get a bag of herbs that is not food grade, they don't have to worry about rats running around their facilities, right? Food grade businesses do. So take that in consideration. Keep that in mind. I knew one shop who would just tell people all the time, like, "Oh yeah, that's great for tea. You can definitely use that." I'm like, "Oh, I didn't know you had food grade herbs." No, we don't. Okay.
Okay then.
Will it technically hurt you? Probably not. But do you want to make tea out of herbs that potentially had rodents running around in it?
No.
Your call. But yeah, start cheap, start small. This is not, anything you get into that is spirituality based, religious based, it's gonna tend to be a bit on the expensive side in the long run because you're looking at specialty items. So when and where you can, be frugal. And honestly, sometimes the best herbs you can use is rosemary that you've grown.
Mm-hmm.
It's the mugwort or the boneset that grows naturally in the hill in your yard. These are the kind of things that's even better because now you're working with the land that's around you, right?
It gives you a relationship with the spirits of the land, with the natural world around you. It gets you more connected to the area that you're doing your practice from, and it gives its own sense of protection as a result.
Yep. And this is really where you'll see your practices start evolving when you start understanding and realizing that everything has a spirit. It has an energy. It may be not a soul as we know it with people, but it has an energy. It has a something to it, right? There is. It's not just a plant. It's not just a rock. There is something more to it than that, and that's really what you tap into when you end up doing these workings. So if there's stuff that you can forage and you find growing naturally or you grow yourself, that's fantastic. There's things you don't even need to spend money on. That really kind of taps into the belief structure of, folk magics. Use what Mother Nature provides for you, use what you have laying around. You can use anything. And it's quite wonderful when you start realizing that. Because then you start looking around and you're like, I could use that for this or this for that.
Oh, look at this dead bee I found. You're going into a ward later.
Yeah. Bees are really great for protective magic and for family and for stuff like that because of how close knit a community they are. Pull that stinger out. Now you have something for a little bit. Well, we won't get into that. That's for more of it.
That's for another day.
Um,
So some things I would like to add. I have a small recommendation list for herbs for those who are looking for some hard copies, things they can use as reference. Anything by Starcassus. This is the Hoodoo Herbal, but fantastic information in this book, specifically Hoodoo oriented. But they have such great information. So I highly recommend at least one or two of her books for working through, especially like the natural world.
I'm going to interrupt you for just 1 second, okay? Because you said a word that is scary to a lot of people, and that's hoodoo. First off, hoodoo is not voodoo. They are different things. Voodoo is a spiritual practice. Hoodoo is more of the physical world, green world type practice. Okay, that is broken down in the most layman, simplest terms possible. It is way more complicated than that, but that's the simplest breakdowns. The other thing, voodoo and hoodoo are not bad. TV, movies, books, everything like that has really, really villainized voodoo and hoodoo.
On top of that, first off, they are closed practices. So be wary, especially honestly, with any of them. If there's a book on it, that's open information. And I mostly use these for like, what do I use Solomon's seal for? What do I use graveyard dirt for? Like, these are things that all come under the umbrella of conjure anyway, which is not closed. But hoodoo and voodoo are specifically closed practices.
I don't think hoodoo was.
It is.
Is it? Okay.
And it's under the umbrella of the African traditional religions, the ATRs. So approach with healthy respect before you go into those realms. If you are of the 8.5 by 11 skin variety, like
Mayo Mafia.
Yeah.
But so that does touch on something else very quickly. When Jess had mentioned that hoodoo is under the umbrella of conjure. Also underneath the umbrella of Conjure is Appalachian folk magic. And a lot of folk magics from our side of the country all fall into that same category. They are related.
Which I got a book for that too.
They do cross over. They cross over. There are connections. So, having a book like the Star Casts one isn't necessarily bad because you can see a cross reference to what you're doing and how you're doing it. It also helps you to not accidentally be disrespectful where you don't mean to. So things to keep in mind.
And yeah, as far as Conjure, I have Jake Richards is a fantastic author for Appalachian folk magic. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking for information on that, I would highly recommend any of his books. My favorite of his so far has been Doctoring the Devil, Notebooks of an Appalachian Conjure Man. These are all available on Amazon, by the way. Oops. Now, again, in the herbal section, we have the Scott Cunningham's Magic Herbalism. This is a standard. It's a fairly good reference volume. It doesn't have everything I use, but it's a really great starting point. And then Juliet Diaz's Plant Witchery. These are all great. This is a nice little quick reference book. So as you can see, it has like just the plant, essential properties, medicinal properties, magical properties. So it's really useful for, okay, I'm just going to go through and do a little bit of plant research. These are all great.
Okay, so we're going to move off of herbs for now because we are getting a little long in the tooth.
Yeah, we're getting a little long-winded
50 minutes. We're going to try to keep this at no more than an hour and a half. So after herbs, the other direction that a lot of people tend to go and to start with is going to be divination practices. Now, there is one. Is the pendulum over here?
Yeah, it should be over there.
The first divination practice I really kind of recommend to people is pendulums. So it's the very simple concept. It can be brass like this one. It can be crystal. Does it really matter which one you use? No.
It can be a rock on a string.
It could be a rock on a string. Anything that is on hanging down and weighted. And the way we do this, and I'm going to switch it to my left hand because this is how. So we have it nice and straight. This will allow you to communicate and ask questions, right? And I'm gonna physically move this one. You can see my hand moving, right? For me, a yes is a circle, a no is back and forth, and a is to and from. Okay, I think this is a wonderful tool to pick up early in your practice for a couple of reasons. One, it helps you to connect with your guides. It helps you connect with ancestors. You can also use it when you're doing other divinations. You can ask yes, no, like, I used to say exclusively would keep a pendulum with me when I did any kind of readings so that if I wasn't 100% certain that I was heading down the right direction, I would pull out the pendulum and ask it straight up like, hey, am I heading in the right way? Boom, we get a circle. Awesome, cool. We can continue on the reading.
It's also useful when you're first learning tarot if you're trying to, kind of memorize the cards and figure out what you're doing. It's excellent for, okay, I just drew the Empress reversed. I'm thinking it's this. Am I correct?
Yep.
And, asking for that yes, no verification, give you a little bit more confidence and a little bit more aid in discerning what you're actually going into.
And as you evolve your practice and you start getting into stuff like working with your guides, it's a great way to ask. Now, some people use boards with it that have like the alphabet and everything on it. Look a lot like Ouija boards or spirit boards. Personally, I have them use the pendulum. So when I was trying to get my guide's name, and so I can understand what to call them, I'm not going to say it on here. It's something that is just between.
It's personal.
Yep. But I would say like, okay, we're going to go through the alphabet, start swinging on the letters. So it'd be like A, B, C. Okay, cool. The name starts with C. A, B, C, D, E. Okay, the second letter is E. So you can go through it and ask it like that. It's also useful, and I've done this, taken these with and used the same process on ghost hunts and house cleansings, stuff like that. So it's a really great beginner to get into.
And it's a highly portable tool as well.
Yeah.
So
toss it in your pocket. It's good to go.
Where cards require at least a little bit of space and maybe no wind, pendulums require a little less.
Yep. So next, we're going to get into cards. So you get your
tarot decks.
Your tarot deck.
And this is a book I recommend for your tarot deck learning. We have the Modern Witchcraft Book of Tarot by Skye Alexander. And this has a really great breakdown of not only how to use your tarot deck, how to cleanse your tarot deck, what all the cards mean in their full, upright, and reverse, ways to use them in ritual, different spreads you can use, all of that. So it's a really great, comprehensive, like easy reference.
So the one we have here, this is not the one you need to go with. I brought this one to show everybody because this is the one that's most recognizable, right? This is the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. Most places are still going to call it just the Rider-Waite deck. I did a little video a while back now on the creation of it, and the Smith aspect refers to Pamela Coleman Smith, who was the artist. She drew all of the imagery of the cards, and as a POC woman back in the days where that was not something fully respected, she got dropped out. So when you see Rider and you see Waite, Rider's the publisher, Waite's the guy who wrote it. Smith got left out. So, there are some decks now that are definitely adding her name back in. Personally, I like to add it back in. But if you just see Rider-Waite on it, it's the same thing. This is that basic tarot that you see most people have. There's a gazillion different decks out there with a whole slew of themes to it. I mean, we have a supernatural deck. I have a Ghostbusters deck. I have a Star Trek: The Next Generation deck. Right?
There's a tattoo themed, a cat themed.
There's a million cat themes. Santa Muerta theme. There is
other Tarot right here. Like there's nice, cute watercolor things. Like
there's so many designs to it, but most decks now work off of the Rider-Waite-Smith style of reading.
So it doesn't matter if you get the Rider-Waite-Smith deck or if you get something that you're like, oh, that's just really pretty. I like the artwork. It's really calling to me. The King of Pentacles on the Rider-Waite-Smith and the King of Pentacles on my other Tarot. It's all King of Pentacles. It means the same thing. So
the artists and the writers of all the different ones, they may, they will have a little bit of a deviation or a little bit personal spin to it, but you don't have to read those books. You don't have to read it that way. If you know the Rider-Waite-Smith way of doing it, you can just pick it up and boom, it's good to go. Every deck, I don't want to say every, I don't like using definitives because only Siths speak in absolutes. We're nerds.
So
we made it almost an hour before we cursed. That's surprising.
It was really hard.
Anywho, now I'm not. Oh yeah. So the majority of decks are going to come with a booklet in it. Most of them are going to be smaller. Some that come in larger sets, like the other Kin that just showed, has like a full size book to it that breaks everything down. So if it's a thing of like, I don't know how to read tarot, there's a book that comes with it. And
there's at least a starter.
If there's not, we're going to give you a website that is a fantastic approach to it, and website and app. Yeah. And that's Labyrinthos.
And that's spelled Labyrinthos.
Labyrinthos. So that is really great for helping you learn it. If you just want to plug into their search, Two of Swords, boom, it's going to give you a full breakdown of what the artwork to it and why, of what it means in just as a complete card, financially.
It does finance, love,
and there's one other that I'm blanking.
Career.
Yeah, and career. And then it does all of that for the reversal. There's a lot of these websites out there. Okay. It is the one that we found works best
and
for us.
Like I said, they have an app that's free on the App Store. And again, it's a very accessible website to use if you're just going on Google. So,
and if I remember correctly, the app even has like a tarot card of the day.
Yeah, you can do like a daily reading. Yeah.
Well, you can do full readings, or you can just get a card of the day and it gives you the breakdown. So now when you're having your morning cup of coffee, you can look at that and be like, that's what that card means. And,
It's a study tool.
it's a study tool. You can reflect on it for the rest of the day and see if it fits in your day and how it goes. Okay. Now, you heard me mention earlier Oracle cards. So Oracle cards, a prime example here is the Halloween Oracle. And I grabbed this one because this was my first Oracle deck. This was the first deck that I connected with totally. Not this one. This one's still in cellophane. But I like to say Oracle cards and tarot cards it's like the difference between using a sedan or pickup truck to go to the grocery store. Your destination is the same. Your path to get there is extremely similar. It's just that little difference. So tarot has that strict breakdown. This is what your cards mean. This is what the suit means. This is what the that means. Whereas the Oracle decks are modeled around a theme. That one was Halloween. So all the decks are tied into Halloween, whether it be modern Halloween or ancient, but it all ties into the holiday. So that's going to be, and again, there's as many different types of tarot decks as many different types of Oracle decks, right? Oracle, I think, is just a little bit more intuitive, right? It's less structured. Each card's going to have a meaning to it and a reason for it, but it does lend itself more for your personal connections.
Yeah, it's a lot more intuitive.
Yeah. Whereas tarot, I like to say tarot, you can read tarot 3 different ways. One is just using the textbook definitions of the cards. 2, using pure intuition and spiritual connection. And 3, which is what personally I like to do the most, it's combine the 2. Use your intuition, but you also use the textbook definitions. Okay. So keep that all in mind as you're starting down the path. If you are frustrated and can't learn one, try the other. Right.
Mhm.
I tried for months to remember the definitions of even just the 4 suits of the minor arcana. And it didn't click. After about 6 months of working with an Oracle deck, I mean, the Halloween deck, all the cards clicked in less than 36 hours. Like, it was like instant. But now knowing that connection and learning that connection, when I went back to tarot and gave that another try, it worked perfectly. So if any of these divination tools stumps you, go to a different one.
Yep.
Runes also go into this category. It can be a bit frustrating on that, especially if you have nobody else in your life that studies the runes
To bounce them off.
Right?
And there's not as much on the runes, there's not as much readily available information as there is on tarot, or like with the Oracle decks coming with a book. And there's a lot of neo-Nazi influence in modern Norse paganism, so it's always hard to kind of sift through what is garbage and what.
We'll get into more of that on the episode having to do with spiritual practices.
Yeah.
But it is something, again, this is where spiritual and physical worlds collide, right? And not always necessarily in a great way. I will say, when it comes to divination, there is 2 things I would say be cautious on and don't jump into right away. Okay. These are kind of a stay away from. The first one is going to be scrying. So scrying is using a blacked out mirror or a piece of obsidian.
Water, like you can
water.
use anything. There's a million ways to scry.
Crystal balls, kind of a deal.
Yeah.
And you gaze into it often at an angle or with smoke going along with it. When you're first starting out, it's going to be very difficult to differentiate what is actually there in the mirror or your eyes playing tricks on you. It also opens up things to it opens you up to other things that are more than what you're going to be looking for. Okay. I'm sure a lot of people have heard, like, oh, mirrors are portals. They are. They can connect to the other world and pass the veil. And when you're just starting into some of these practices, that's not the best place to go.
No.
Okay. And that's also leading into the second one,
Spirit
and that
boards.
is spirit boards, Ouija boards, stuff like that. Personally, I use them. I love them. I think it's great. Jess?
Not very much.
No. It's not, again, this is something that movies and TVs and books and stuff have sensationalized and turned into something. I swear, if I watch one more episode of Ghost Adventures or Ghost Hunters or, a
Any of
real
those.
haunting where they have the cheesy playbacks of people's stories, and it's all on, oh, Ouija boards are tools for demonic entities. No,
It's
but
tools for entities, period.
tools for entities. If you are internally looking to get into something like that, that's what's going to come through. Okay. But
But also
when you're
like
brand new, it's easier to lose control of things. It's easier to
be tricked by
be
things.
tricked by things. So instead of going into the Ouija board and asking it for what's coming up in the future or what's
Trying to
here,
contact the ghost of John Lennon.
these are tools that you want to stay away from until you have a better understanding, until you have discernment of what and who you're talking to, and pretty strong protections for in case something gnarly does come through.
And know how to close the portal after you
Close
open
it.
it.
Yeah.
Like,
These are all things that they're not difficult to learn.
but people forget a step because they're so excited to jump into something
Yep.
new. And then they forget some crucial steps that, would keep them safer.
I mean, after over a decade, I still do that. I still make these dumb little mistakes every now and then, but I have the knowledge to correct it. I have the experience to correct it. I if I accidentally unleash something demonic and evil into the house,
Not only, first off, I will become demonic and evil.
She'll whoop me if I do that. But
the only thing that has kept him alive this far is I learned when I was planting a tree a couple years ago that I do not have what it takes to dig a hole big enough to bury him.
At the same time, I have experience clearing out these large entities out of a space. So we know how to get rid of anything that accidentally comes across. You will eventually too. Okay.
Give it
But
time.
it's the moniker of you have to crawl before you can walk. You have to walk before you can run.
Yeah.
So crawl. Don't try to jump in. The first time you pick up a baseball, you're not going to pitch in the 9th inning of the World Series.
Right.
Period.
We're going to pause the episode here and start right back up next week as we continue the discussion on how to start your practice. See you soon.